Take your things and go!
The day my mother-in-law threw me out of her mansion, she pointed at my suitcase and said, "Take your cheap clothes, your lies, and that child inside you, and disappear before my son comes home." As she believed I had nowhere to go. She believed my husband had already chosen his family over me. And she believed the mansion behind her belonged to the Whitmore family. She was wrong about all three. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 32 years old, 5 months pregnant, and standing in the summer heat outside one of the largest homes in Westchester County, New York. My mother-in-law, Evelyn Whitmore, was inches from my face. Behind her stood the rest of the family like an audience waiting for a show. My husband's older brother, Grant, had his arms crossed. His wife, Natalie, watched me with a satisfied little smile. Evelyn's sister looked uncomfortable, but she said nothing. 2 family attorneys stood near the front steps. And my husband, Daniel, was not there. That was the part that hurt most. Evelyn had called me that morning and told me Daniel had been injured in a car accident. She said he was inside the mansion and wanted to see me. I drove there in a panic, packed an overnight bag, and spent the entire trip calling his phone. No answer. When I arrived, Evelyn told me there had been no accident. It was a trap. She said the family had discovered that I was having an affair. She held up printed photographs, showing me entering a hotel with a man. Then she produced medical papers, claiming Daniel could not be the father of my baby. I stared at the documents while my hands began to shake. The man in the photographs was Dr. Marcus Lane, a fertility specialist. Daniel and I had visited his private clinic because we had struggled for 2 years to have a child. We had kept the treatment secret because Daniel did not want his family involved. The medical report was completely false. I tried to explain. But Evelyn did not want an explanation. She wanted a confession. "Daniel knows everything," she said. "He's ashamed to face you. Then let me speak to him. He has finished speaking to you." I looked toward the mansion. One of the upstairs curtains moved. Someone was watching. "Daniel," I shouted. Evelyn grabbed my arm. "Do not create a scene." I pulled away from her. "You created this scene." Her face hardened. "You came into this family with nothing. We gave you a name, a home, and a life you could never have earned. Now leave with whatever dignity you have left." My fear turned into something colder. The Whitmores had never given me anything. Daniel and I lived in a modest apartment in Manhattan that I paid for with income from my design business. The mansion belonged to an old family trust, and Daniel had warned me that Evelyn loved using wealth as a weapon. Still, I had never imagined she would go this far. I placed one hand over my stomach and looked directly at her. "I'll leave," I said. "But when the truth comes out, remember that you made me walk away." Evelyn laughed. "No one will believe you." I picked up my suitcase and turned toward my car. Then I heard 3 soft knocks from inside the house. Knock. Knock. It came from the upstairs window. That was a signal Daniel and I had used for years. 3 knocks meant, "I'm here." I can't speak. I did not turn around. I put my suitcase in the trunk, got into my car, and drove away. But I knew my husband was inside that house. And I knew he was in trouble. For the next 6 hours, I acted as if Evelyn had won. I checked into a small hotel under my maiden name. Then I called the only person I trusted completely. My older cousin, Rachel, a former police detective who now worked as a private investigator. Rachel arrived before sunset. I showed her the photographs and the false medical report. She studied the papers carefully. "This isn't just a family argument," she said. "Someone planned this. Daniel is inside that house." "Did you see him?" No, but he gave me our signal. Rachel believed me. She always had. We called local police and requested a welfare check. Officers went to the mansion, but Evelyn told them Daniel had left for a business retreat. She showed them messages from his phone confirming the story. The officers had no reason to enter the house. That night, I received a text from Daniel's number. "I'm sorry. The baby is not mine. Don't contact me again." I read it twice. Then I smiled. Rachel looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "Daniel didn't write this," I said. "How do you know?" "He never calls our baby the baby. He calls her Peanut." We now had confirmation that someone else controlled his phone. The next morning, Rachel began investigating the hotel photographs. The images had time stamps, but the hotel security manager confirmed that the date had been changed. The original footage was almost 4 months old. The day Daniel had driven me to the fertility clinic and waited in the parking garage to avoid photographers, covering a celebrity wedding next door. Someone had taken ordinary photographs and turned them into evidence of betrayal. The medical report was easier to expose. The clinic logo was outdated. The doctor's signature was copied, and the laboratory number did not exist. But we still did not know why Evelyn had done it. Then, Rachel found something strange in the county property records. The Whitmore mansion was going to be sold in 30 days. The family business had borrowed millions against it. Grant had approved the loans, and the company was close to bankruptcy. If the bank seized the property, the Whitmore name would become a public scandal. There was only one asset large enough to save them: the Bennett Heritage Trust. My trust. My grandfather, Samuel Bennett, had built a national chain of hardware stores. When he died, he left me a private inheritance that I could access fully at age 33, or earlier if I had a child. I had never told Evelyn the amount. Daniel was the only Whitmore who knew. My birthday was 5 months away. My baby was due in 4. Suddenly, the timing made sense. If Evelyn could destroy my marriage before the baby was born, she could pressure Daniel into challenging the child's paternity. If the divorce became ugly, the family could threaten years of court battles unless I agreed to a financial settlement. They were not trying to protect Daniel from me. They were trying to use Daniel to steal from me. But one question remained. Why was he still inside that mansion? On the 3rd night, a message appeared in the shared online calendar Daniel, and I used for doctor appointments. The event was scheduled for 300 a.m. Its title contained only 3 words: BUE Rome, DSK, 417. The event disappeared 30 seconds later, but I had already taken a screenshot. I knew the blue room. It was Daniel's late father's study. And 417 was the code Daniel used for our apartment alarm. Rachel contacted a judge she had worked with and gave her everything we had: the fake records, the altered photographs, the false messages, the hidden calendar event, and my statement about seeing movement upstairs. The judge authorized another welfare check, with permission to enter if officers found evidence of danger. At 7:20 the next morning, police arrived at the mansion. Evelyn tried to block the door. This time, they walked past her. They found Daniel in the blue room. The outside lock had been changed, and the windows had been sealed with security latches. His laptop and phone were gone. A tray of food sat near the door. Grant claimed Daniel had suffered a nervous breakdown and had agreed to remain isolated. Daniel told a different story. 3 days earlier, Grant had invited him to discuss the company's finances. When Daniel refused to ask me for money, they took his phone. Evelyn told him I had confessed to an affair and planned to leave the country. When he tried to go after me, Grant shoved him into the study and locked the door. Daniel had seen me arrive through the window. He knocked 3 times because he knew I would understand. The police arrested Grant for unlawful imprisonment and assault. Evelyn was not arrested that morning, but her victory was already collapsing. Daniel came to my hotel with a bruise along his jaw and tears in his eyes. "Claire, I'm sorry." I wanted to run into his arms. I wanted the nightmare to end in one perfect moment. But pain does not disappear just because the truth arrives. "Did you tell them about my trust?" I asked. He looked down. "That was my answer. I told my mother years ago," he said. "Before we were married, I was proud of you. I never imagined she would remember every detail." "You promised me it was private." "I know." And when Grant started asking for money, Daniel was silent. "You knew they were desperate," I said. "I knew the company was struggling. I didn't know about the loans or the forged documents. I believed he had not planned the crime, but I also understood that his silence had protected his family until they became dangerous. "I love you," I told him. "But love without honesty is just another locked room." Daniel began to cry. I did not forgive him that day. Instead, I gave him a choice. He could tell investigators everything and help expose the people who had imprisoned him. Or he could return to the family that had nearly destroyed us. He chose the truth. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation uncovered more than we expected. Grant had moved company funds into private accounts. Natalie had paid a photographer to follow me. One of the family attorneys had created the false medical report. And Evelyn had used Daniel's phone to send messages designed to make me believe he had abandoned me. The most important evidence was hidden in the blue room desk. Behind the bottom drawer, police found a small voice recorder Daniel had switched on during the first confrontation. It captured Evelyn saying, "Once Claire signs the settlement, the trust will save the company. She'll pay to make the paternity scandal disappear." Her voice was calm and clear. So was Grant's reply. "And if she refuses, then we ruin her until she begs us to take the money." That recording ended every lie. The district attorney charged Grant, Natalie, the attorney, and Evelyn with crimes related to fraud, conspiracy, unlawful imprisonment, and evidence tampering. Their lawyers negotiated, but the case was too strong to bury. Evelyn called me before her arraignment. "Think about Daniel," she said. "A trial will destroy his name. You locked your son in a room. I was protecting this family." "No," I said. "You were protecting a house." Her voice softened. "Claire, we can fix this privately." For the first time, I heard fear in Evelyn Whitmore's voice. I remembered her pointing at me in the driveway. I remembered how she had smiled when she told me no one would believe me. "You were right about one thing," I said. "Someone is leaving that mansion with nothing. It just isn't me." Then I ended the call. The bank scheduled the mansion for auction 3 months later. I could have saved it with one phone call. Daniel never asked me to. By then, he understood that rescuing the property would only protect the illusion that had poisoned his family. Instead, I attended the auction with Rachel. The mansion was worth millions, but the criminal case frightened many buyers. I purchased it through a company whose name Evelyn did not recognize. When the sale became final, I returned to the same driveway where she had humiliated me. Evelyn was carrying a suitcase. She looked smaller than I remembered. Grant and Natalie were awaiting trial. The family business had entered bankruptcy. The relatives who once stood behind her had disappeared. Daniel waited beside me, but I spoke alone. Evelyn looked at the ownership papers in my hand. "You bought my home," she whispered. "It was never truly your home," I said. "It was a stage where everyone had to obey you." She stared at my stomach. "My granddaughter should grow up here. My daughter will grow up in a home where love is not used as a debt." Claire, please." I did not shout. I did not point at her. I did not need to become the woman who had hurt me. I simply stepped aside and opened the gate. "You told me to leave before Daniel came home," I said. "Now Daniel is home, and it's time for you to leave." She walked past us with her suitcase and did not look back. I did not keep the mansion. 6 months later, after my daughter Lily was born, I donated the property to a nonprofit that created temporary housing for pregnant women escaping abusive homes. The Blue Room became a legal assistance office. The grand dining room became a community kitchen. The bedrooms that had once held family secrets became safe places for women rebuilding their lives. Daniel and I went to counseling. Trust returned slowly through truth, patience, and hard choices. He testified against his family, resigned from the company, and became the kind of father who understood that protecting peace sometimes means walking away from blood. Evelyn accepted a plea agreement. Grant went to prison. Natalie received probation and was ordered to repay the money she had helped hide. The attorney lost his license. Justice did not erase what happened. It did something better. It stopped them from doing it again. On the first anniversary of that terrible day, I stood in the mansion's old driveway while Lily slept against my chest. A young woman arrived carrying 2 bags, frightened and exhausted. One of the counselors opened the gate and welcomed her inside. I thought about the suitcase I had carried away from that same place. Evelyn believed she had thrown me out because I was powerless. But sometimes the door that slams behind you is the same door that finally sets you free. And the family that tried to leave me with nothing gave me the chance to build a home for women who had nowhere else to go. That was my revenge. Not taking their mansion. Turning it into something their cruelty could never become. A place where no woman would ever be told she had nothing again.